Catherine Murphy, please, on behalf of the Social Democrats.
Thank you, Taoiseach. I also want to raise the new measures you raised, you announced yesterday. I think it's obvious that the public are way ahead on this issue and understand the risks from the variants, including higher mortality rates and the potential impact of reinfection and the effectiveness of the vaccines themselves. And indeed, I too want to endorse the terrible, sad milestone that we reached yesterday. Taoiseach, there's an understandable fear and desire by the public for the government to make decisions to keep the country as safe as possible. I listened to Minister McGrath this morning on Morning Ireland, and he told us that international travel is low risk. Can I ask, where is the evidence for that? How is it that the UK variant is now dominant, and how did it get here? How is it that the South African variant is now confirmed to be here, and how did it get here? Is it still a working assumption of government that international travel is low risk? Minister McGrath, on behalf of the government, went on to say that the vast majority of people were complying. Less than a week ago, I raised the possible quarantine of international travellers with the Taoiseach, who told me it was unworkable and that the majority of people were undertaking what he called essential travel. I had quoted figures I'd been provided with by the Minister for Health that showed that 49% of international travellers over a month-long period, even after several attempts, didn't even provide an address. Taoiseach, where is the evidence of compliance, and how will changing the guidance from to a mandatory requirement at home change that? How will it be enforced? And have you talked to the Garda Commissioner in relation to this? Do we have the number of Gardaí to do what needs to be done, or to do what's been demanded of them? I also wonder, when the Taoiseach was responding, was he aware of the limited number of flights that are arriving were from holiday destinations from several, for example, of the Canary Islands? Taoiseach, it's welcome that the numbers are falling, and that we need to keep collectively working to ensure that they continue to fall, not least because our hospitals are under extreme pressure and that hospitals themselves are now high-risk environments for catching COVID. But Taoiseach, I find it hard to comprehend from the measures announced just what the government's strategy is. It seems that the starting point is what can't be done, with a reliance on the default position of lockdowns until the vaccine programme, and let's hope it does roll out as we hope, but that is not by any measure certain. So my questions are, is the government still of the view that international travel is of low risk? Have you talked to the Garda Commissioner? What is the strategy for the rest of the year? How do you anticipate rolling lockdowns? And do you accept that high-profile non-compliance, such as international travel, undermines broader compliance?
Taoiseach.
Well, first of all, I thank the Deputy for the issues that you have raised. The government view is very clear. People should not travel for non-essential. There should be very few reasons why people should travel. You are correct in saying that quite a significant number of people who are travelling on holidays from Ireland and coming back in over since the Christmas period. That needs to stop, and very clearly needs to stop, and that's why we're giving, why there is extra enforcement now at the ports and the airports, because anybody who travels abroad is breaching level 5 rules, and that is the facts. They're in breach of level 5 rules, and that carries with it consequences, and there will be an increase to the fixed penalty for breach of those rules relating to international travel. It's going from 100 up to 500 euros in relation to that. There will be increased Garda checks and enforcement activity, again relating to people travelling internationally who are in breach of level 5 rules. And also the existing regulations that are already in place in terms of having to have a PCR test prior to coming in. That will be extended to the 5th of March. And then the range of mandatory quarantine measures will also be introduced. Some by regulation this week, others affecting EU or giving us support for EU citizens and Irish citizens by primary legislation, because the Primary Act has to be amended to enable that. And so, but also we will have the capacity in that primary legislation to extend if we need to. All aspects of human behaviour carry risk, and yes, certainly in terms of international travel in the context of variants, which we are obviously very concerned about. As I said earlier, it's prolonged suppression of the virus. It has to be our goal, and the numbers are coming down, but once we get them down, we have to keep them down. And the key to that is human behaviour both on the island and, yes, significant restriction of travel into the Republic. And also additional measures in terms of any violations of Level 5 from citizens who come from the north into the Republic as well, over the border. There will be measures there as well to deal with that, to make sure that there's no breaches of Level 5 rules and obligations from Irish citizens in Northern Ireland who come over the border. There is a very significant range of measures, if you take them cumulatively, will have an impact on travel. Already the PCR test imposition has resulted in a reduction in the numbers travelling in. There will be a need always for essential workers to travel into the Republic. The category of essential workers has been narrowed.
Thank you, Taoiseach.
As well, to reduce the numbers who can come into the Republic.
Deputy Murphy.
This is a really tough on people, and there is a high degree of fear. And that's why people are not looking to punish other people, but they're looking to be protected. And that's why the focus is on things like international travel in relation to the variants. There's an understanding, a public understanding of those risks. So essentially that's why quarantine is being sought, not as a punishment. Indeed, it is unacceptable that people are going on holidays. And indeed, we saw last night students arriving. I can't quite comprehend why families would want their children to be travelling, apart from anything else, where we have a very dominant strain at the moment. Taoiseach, this didn't arrive in on a southeasterly. It didn't arrive on a southeasterly. It arrived on a flight or on a boat. And other variants, that will be the means that they arrive as well. That's why this is so important. What if quarantine, for example, Taoiseach, is introduced in the UK?
Deputy Murphy.
Will we follow on then? Will that be where the all-Ireland approach is adopted? Have you talked to the UK counterparts in relation to that recently?
We are introducing quarantine into the country. No, we're introducing it, and the legislation will give us broad capacity to extend it. And the numbers have collapsed. Numbers have collapsed in terms of people coming into the Republic to very, very low levels. But we have to maintain that over the coming period, and that is the reality. Yes, you are correct in terms of identifying the variants as the significant factor now in terms of how we deal with international travel. And there is a lot of fear out there, and there's a lot of anxiety out there. This is the first time, bar some deputies, that there's been a call from different parties for mandatory quarantining universally. It hasn't been said before by some of the parties that are saying, oh, that's fair enough, people can evolve in their positions. But the numbers are way down, and will remain very low given the additional measures we've introduced and announced yesterday, and any further measures that will be required in relation to the variants. There has been discussions
Time is up now.
between the
Thank
Minister
you.
for Foreign Affairs and the Secretary of State in the UK, but are at a preliminary stage. I've had very preliminary discussions with the British Prime Minister, and the North-South, the officials
Thank
between
you,
the
Taoiseach.
Executive
The time is
and
up.
our government have been conducted in a very constructive way in terms of sharing of data and so on.
Now, Deputy